Hi, this is Don Nathan from Nathan Woodwinds. I would just like to share with you some tips for clarinet repair and maintenance for the busy band director. I was a band director for 39 years, retired last year, and am in the repair business. I'm a clarinetist, and I have some things that I think will be very helpful for you. Let's talk today about the clarinet. There's a lot that can go wrong on a clarinet, as with most woodwind instruments. But when the clarinet won't play right, when maybe a student says the high notes don't come out, it just won't make a sound, whatever, don't overlook the reed, because students tend to leave them on too long. You know, they can get dirty, they can get worn out. As you know, they can get moldy if they leave them on the mouthpiece. They should always put them in, dry them off and put them in a reed case rather than leaving them on the mouthpiece when they put the clarinet away. So many times I've opened student instruments and seen the reed on the mouthpiece. Sometimes they don't even put the cap on, or they'll take the reed off and just put it loose in the case. They should have a good reed case and not leave it on the mouthpiece. Also, sometimes they try to play broken reeds. You certainly don't want that. Assuming the student is playing on a good reed and is playing with a good embouchure and is covering the holes completely, then you really should get a good sound if the instrument is in good shape. If there's a problem beyond that, it's most likely that something is leaking. If everything is sealed, it should respond well. And here's what you should look for on a clarinet. Go through on the keys, make sure all of them will open and close easily. Sometimes springs might come off. Sometimes it's obvious because the key won't pop back up. As you can see, this is an example of having a spring off right here. I take this little crochet hook. It's on this side, you've got that. And I can just pull it back onto the little notch. Don't overdo it. And there you go. Key works again. Okay? The other thing you want to look for is corks. Now, I'm not talking about the tenon corks. Those are obviously important. You know about those. But there are small corks on clarinets in between keys, right? So if you look like, see that one moving right there, there is a very small cork in there. Now, if that cork wasn't there and I pressed down that key, there'd be a lot of play in it. The key would move, the lever would move, but the key would not open right away. And so in that case, that cork would need to be replaced. That may not be something you as a band director want to deal with, but you could definitely take that to your tech and they would be able to fix that for you. Another reason that keys might not seal all the way would be bad pads. Now, this clarinet has brand new pads, and you can see that they are white and they look really good. You can't always tell by looking at them, but sometimes you can. If they're ripped, if the skin on them is coming off, you know, they're just not sealing. But you can tell if a clarinet is sealing by using the suction test. Now, this is something you're going to want to clean the clarinet out, make sure it's good and clean first, okay? But here's the way you would do that. On the top joint, cover all the holes, make sure they're covered completely, like you're fingering a low C. Put your palm of your hand over the bottom of the key, make a seal, and then suck air through it. Now notice there's a popping sound when I pick up a finger. Let's do that again. Hear that? That popping sound means there is a seal. So everything is working well on this. If it didn't, it would mean that one of these pads is not sealing. Okay? You can do the same thing on the bottom joint. With your right hand, cover the holes, put your pinky on the low E B key. Now all the keys are closed. Put it in your left hand. You hear that nice pop? This clarinet's in good shape. The other thing that would keep a clarinet from sealing are bent keys. You know, if the pad's not lined up on the tone hole when it goes down, or if the mechanism is not working correctly. Bent keys or loose or over-tightened keys. The keys are held on either by pivot screws or by rods, okay? So if you're looking at the head of a pivot screw there, you can see that it might be loose, okay, or it might be over tightened. Set it down and get a small screwdriver and just tighten that, okay? It's as simple as that. Some keys have rods. Now the rods, for instance, this key right here, that actually is held on by a rod that goes in there all the way through and then screws in down here, okay? But it can come loose as well. So you would find the head of that screw and you would tighten it. If you over tighten one of those screws, it can bind the key. So you want to be careful that you don't over tighten. If you have key oil, I would suggest you get one something like this, light key oil, and a needle. You can put a very small dab. Now you don't want to overdo this. What I do is make sure there's just a little bit of a drop hanging off the end of that needle, and then you can put it right in the pivot point there. It's very common to have bent keys right here in the middle, okay? These keys right here that protrude out, all of these can easily get bent. Also the bridge key, all right? So you got the bridge there, and you have to be careful when you're putting it together that those get lined up, okay? Let's talk about how to avoid bent keys to start with, and that will be how you assemble and disassemble the clarinet. First of all, make sure that the corks are loose enough with cork grease. Now, you don't have to put cork grease on every time, but if they're new, you probably will have to put it on for a while. This one I think has been well greased, so I'm not going to worry about it. So here's the way you should do this. When you pick up the clarinet, take the bottom joint and the bell. Try not to pick it up by the keys, but pick it up by the body. Now, I'm going to put my fingers around here. This is the way I would play the clarinet, like this, but I'm going to grab it a little more firmly, like so. This way I am not bending any keys. If I were to grab it like this, I'm going to bend these keys over time. All right, so I'm going to hold it like this without bending keys, and I'm going to put on the bell. I'm just going to sort of twist it on. Okay, so that works really well. Now you have a place where you can hold it right down here. Okay, I'm down by the bell here. I am not pressing down any keys. I'm going to take my upper joint, and I'm going to, again, this is the way I would play it, but I'm going to hold it a little more firmly by putting the palm of my hand on the back. Careful not to press any of those long rods that might bend. Now look at all the potential for damage here, okay? If we don't do this right, we get those put together and we could damage those keys. Bridge key, right? We're going to just stick those in, line it up, and gently twist and push. Make sure it's lined up all the way, okay? The way to check for the bridge key alignment is to press down this first ring on the lower joint. Now you can notice that these keys here, when I press them down, are going down as well. This needs to seal, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a low E flat with the 1 and 1 fingering. Check this out. Now that's working pretty well, but I can tell if it's sealing all the way by tapping on this when I'm playing. Okay, so that's nice and steady. There's no bump. If it's not closed all the way, you'd hear a little da 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 each time you tap that. So it's a good way to test it. Any of these keys can be bent. So if you find a bent key, I would think twice before trying to bend it back. All right. Some of them you may be tempted, and you may be able to, either with your hand or with a pair of duckbill pliers. If you do decide to do that, make sure you cover the key first with a rag before you try to bend it, because you're going to scar up the metal if you don't, okay? I would think real hard about that, though. Maybe take it to your tech for bent keys, because even tech sometimes can break keys, especially if it's an old clarinet or one of those cheap clarinets you can buy for $100 on the internet. Those things will have very soft metal, and you'll think you're bending it, and it's very malleable, but then it might break easily as well. So be very careful with that. But those are the main issues I think you're going to find on the clarinet. Well, hopefully this has been helpful for you. If there's anything I can do for you, you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them in the comments here, or you can send me an email, nathanwoodwinds@gmail.com, or visit my website, nathanwoodwinds.com. Good luck and take care.